Know your tyrant. You stand before the silent colossus of your own heart, bound by chains that shimmer deceptively in the light of your yearning. These chains, forged not by the hands of another, but by your own trembling spirit, whisper of a force far greater than love itself, the fear of standing alone. Are you not perhaps a worshipper at the altar of false idols? Idols that promise validation, warmth and belonging, but demand in return the ultimate sacrifice, your will. The tyrant who holds your soul in thrall is not always a cruel master. Often it wears the face of kindness, the guise of necessity, the voice of sweet reason. Yet beneath these comforting masks lies the truth. You have knelt willingly, offering the freedom of your being in exchange for illusions that cannot endure. The tragedy is not the presence of the tyrant, but your devotion to it. You must see this clearly, for the battle is not against another, but against the shadow of yourself that clings to the idea of incompleteness. To know your tyrant, you must first gaze into the abyss of your own desires and confront their origin. Do you long for love, or do you fear its absence? Do you seek companionship, or do you flee the silence of your own company? To unmask the tyrant is to strip away the illusions that have comforted you, to stand naked before the cold winds of truth. But take heart, for this is not annihilation, it is liberation. When you see your chains as they are, you begin to understand the power to break them was always yours. Ask your soul, what is your highest purpose? There comes a moment when the din of the world falls silent and you are left alone with the raw, undeniable presence of your soul. In that silence, a question rises like a flame in the dark. What are you? Not the mask you wear, not the roles you play, but the essence that burns behind your eyes. And more than that, why are you? What force compels you to rise each day, to strive, to suffer, to yearn? It is here, in this sacred confrontation, that your true purpose begins to emerge. Do not flinch. The answers may not comfort you, for the soul is a restless, untamed thing, and its desires are rarely polite. Perhaps you have spent years chasing the approval of others, building monuments to their expectations, while your soul, wild and defiant, has whispered of a different path. Perhaps the life you have built so carefully is a gilded cage, and the purpose that stirs within you threatens to tear it apart. Do not mistake this discomfort for destruction. It is the birth pangs of freedom. To ask your soul its purpose is to invite rebellion against the smallness of your current existence. Your purpose is not a destination. It is a horizon that recedes even as you approach it, drawing you ever forward, demanding your growth, your courage, your transformation. It is the spark that defies the cold logic of survival, that demands you live not merely as a shadow among shadows, but as a force that shapes the very world in which it moves. And yet, to hear this call is to risk everything. To pursue your highest purpose is to walk willingly into the fire, knowing it will consume the person you are now. But take heart, for what emerges from those flames is not ash, but the truest version of yourself, a being untamed, undivided, and utterly alive. Dare to listen, and you will find a force within you greater than fear, greater than doubt, greater even than your own limitations. It is a force that will guide you, if you let it, toward a life not of quiet desperation, but of profound and radiant meaning. The nature of power in relationships power is the silent architect of every bond we form, shaping the structure of our connections with an invisible hand. It weaves itself into gestures, words, and silences, dictating the rhythm of our interactions. You may not see it, but you feel it. The weight of decisions you do not make, the unspoken rules you have learned to follow, the subtle pressure to shrink or bend. This is the nature of power in relationships. It is not wielded overtly like a sword, but woven like a net, ensnaring you in ways so familiar you forget to notice. And yet the question is not who holds the power, The question is, why do you surrender it? Why do you allow the rules of the union to be written in ink, not your own? Perhaps it is because acquiescence feels safer than confrontation, because the illusion of harmony is easier to bear than the chaos of truth. Or perhaps it is because you have been taught to equate love with sacrifice, to believe that yielding is the price you must pay for belonging. But consider this: the one who dictates the rules is not always the stronger party. Sometimes the one who commands is just as bound as the one who obeys, caught in the need to control, to dominate, to secure their place. Power is a currency, and both spender and receiver are enslaved by its exchange. The tragedy lies not in the existence of power, but in the way it is misused, turned into a tool of manipulation rather than a foundation for freedom. You must dare to see the truth of your own complicity. To yield to another's rules is to deny the sovereignty of your own will. It is to make yourself smaller, quieter, less than you were born to be. But what if you refused? What if you stood tall, not in defiance, but in the radiant assertion of your own value? True power in a relationship does not seek to dominate, it seeks to elevate. It flows not from control, but from the fearless mutual recognition of two free souls. To reclaim power is not to destroy the bond, but to transform it. It is to rewrite the unspoken rules, not with domination, but with respect, with clarity, with courage. The question is not whether power exists, it always does. The question is whether it will bind you or liberate you. And the answer lies in the choices you dare to make. The illusion of love as a tool of control. What is love, if not the most dangerous of illusions? It arrives cloaked in sweetness, its touch tender, its promises endless. But beneath its silken guise, love can conceal the sharp edges of chains. Chains we mistake for devotion, for passion, for necessity. Love, in its purest form, seeks no captives, yet how often do we find ourselves ensnared, our will bent, our fire dimmed, all in the name of this sacred ideal? Do you feel it? That subtle erosion of your autonomy, masquerading as compromise? The quiet surrender of your boundaries, justified as an act of care? This is the illusion at work, a love that does not uplift, but controls. It whispers that your sacrifices are noble, that your submission is proof of your worth, that to yield is to strengthen the bond. Yet every act of quiet compliance feeds the hunger of the one who takes, while leaving you hollowed, diminished, a shadow of the self you once were. But do not mistake this for love. Love does not demand your surrender. It does not thrive on the ashes of your independence. Control, dressed as love, is a parasite. It feeds on your fears, your insecurities, your longing to belong. It is a force that thrives in the dark corners of your doubt, growing stronger with every moment you silence your own voice in favor of another's. To untangle passion from subjugation, you must confront the truth that terrifies you most. Love, real love, cannot coexist with control. True love is a fire that burns away illusions, leaving only the raw and unyielding essence of two souls meeting as equals. It does not ask for your silence, it demands your authenticity. It does not seek to diminish you, it seeks to magnify your light. And yet this truth comes with a price. To see the illusion for what it is, to confront the control hidden behind the veil of affection, is to risk the destruction of the very bond you hold dear. But ask yourself, what kind of love is worth preserving if its foundation is your submission? To break free from this illusion is not to abandon love, but to reclaim it in its truest, purest form, a force that liberates rather than ensnares. Dare to see clearly, and you will discover that the greatest act of love you can offer to yourself and to another is the refusal to wield or submit to control. It is only in this freedom that love becomes real. The power of rejecting idealization. You are not in love with them. You are in love with the image of them you have created. An image so radiant, so flawless that it blinds you to the truth of who they are. You have elevated them, not to see them more clearly, but to avoid confronting the cracks in their facade. In your desire to worship, you have sculpted a false idol and knelt before it, offering your devotion to a fiction of your own making. But what happens when the pedestal begins to crumble? What happens when the weight of reality shatters the ideal? You feel betrayed, as though they have failed you, when in truth it was you who failed to see them as they are. Idealization is not love. It is a form of self-deception. It is easier to adore a perfect illusion than to face the imperfections of a real person. Yet in doing so, you rob yourself of the chance to experience something far greater, the raw, unvarnished beauty of a love that does not require perfection. To stop idealizing is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of courage. It requires you to meet your partner on the ground, eye to eye, stripped of the illusions that once defined your bond. It demands that you confront their flaws, their limitations, their humanity, and perhaps more frighteningly, that you confront your own. For in idealizing them, you have also hidden from yourself, burying your insecurities beneath the glow of their imagined greatness. Rejecting idealization is not the end of love, but the beginning of something deeper. It is the moment when love sheds its glittering costume and stands bare, unguarded and real. It is no longer a fairy tale, but a partnership, a meeting of two flawed beings striving not for perfection, but for understanding. And in that understanding lies a power far greater than any pedestal can offer. Do you dare to see them as they are? To love not the idea of them, but the truth of them. To love them not despite their flaws, but because of them. This is the power of rejecting idealization. It frees you from the tyranny of illusion and allows you to love fully and fiercely in the light of truth, unmasking who stands before you. Not all masks are made of cloth. The most dangerous are woven from charm and kindness. Before you they stand, smiling, attentive, even generous. Yet there is a weight in their presence, an invisible pull that bends your will to theirs. This is the cunning of the manipulator, the subtle tyranny of the one who cloaks their control in sweetness. You do not see the mask at first, for it is perfectly crafted to reflect your desires, your fears, your deepest longings. It is a mirror, and in it you see not them but what you wish to see. But pay attention. Beneath the surface, there are fractures in the facade, the compliments that carry a sting of condescension, the favors that come with invisible strings, the warmth that turns cold the moment you step out of line. A manipulator does not shout or demand. They guide, nudge, ensnare. They offer you choices, but the outcomes are already theirs to control. And when you begin to sense this, they retreat behind their mask, leaving you questioning your own perception, wondering if the fault lies with you. To unmask them, you must first unmask yourself. Why do you allow this dance to continue? What fear holds you in their orbit? Is it the fear of confrontation, of loss, of standing alone? The manipulator thrives on your hesitation, your unwillingness to disrupt the fragile balance they have created. But know this, a balance built on deception is not balance, it is control, and it will only tighten its grip over time. To see them clearly is an act of defiance. It requires you to strip away the layers of their performance and confront the reality beneath. It demands that you refuse to be charmed, to be swayed, to be silenced. But this unmasking is not merely for their sake, it is for yours. For every moment you allow the mask to remain, you deny yourself the truth of your own power. Do not fear the unveiling. The tyrant's greatest weapon is your blindness, their greatest fear, your clarity. See them for who they are, and you reclaim the freedom they sought to take. See yourself for who you are, and you become untouchable. The mask shatters not with force, but with light, the light of your uncompromising awareness. Free will, your greatest gift. You were not born to kneel. Deep within you, beneath the layers of doubt and conditioning, burns the eternal flame of free will. It is the essence of your being, the unyielding force that defies the chains of circumstance, the whispers of control, the heavy hand of so-called fate. And yet, how often do you betray this gift, surrendering it not with defiance, but with quiet resignation? Subjugation is not thrust upon you, it is accepted. And that, perhaps, is the most bitter truth of all. Do you feel it? The weight of every yes uttered when you long to say no, every step taken down a path not your own? This is the burden of forgotten freedom, the slow erosion of a will that once stood unbroken. And yet, even in the darkest corners of compliance, your free will remains. It cannot be extinguished, only ignored. It waits, patient and unrelenting, for the moment you choose to remember its power. For that is the secret. Subjugation is not destiny. It is a decision made in 1,000 small moments, each one a choice to yield, to silence your voice, to avert your gaze. But if submission is a choice, so too is liberation. And liberation does not come from external revolutions or grand gestures. It begins within, in the quiet and resolute decision to reclaim your sovereignty. Free will is not a promise of ease, it is a call to courage. To wield it is to risk, to step into the unknown, to confront the possibility of failure. But it is also the only path to authenticity, to a life lived not as an echo of another's desires, but as the unfiltered expression of your own. To embrace your free will is to claim your place in the world as a creator, not a pawn, as the master of your own fate. Do not mistake compliance for peace, nor submission for love. True peace is born of alignment with your deepest self, and true love does not seek to own or be owned. Your will is your birthright, your compass, your shield. To wield it is to honor the essence of who you are. To abandon it is to betray not only yourself, but the very potential of your existence. Rise then and choose, not out of rebellion, but out of truth. For in the act of choosing, you become what you were always meant to be, free. Boundaries as an act of self-love. Boundaries are not walls, they are declarations. They are not the rejection of others, but the affirmation of yourself. In setting them, you do not push the world away. You draw yourself into focus, carving out the sacred space where your dignity, your worth, your essence can stand unshaken. A boundary is an act of creation, and what you create is freedom. Freedom from the burdens you were never meant to carry, from the demands that suffocate your spirit, from the silent erosion of your soul. To live without boundaries is to live as prey to the will of others. It is to allow the line between you and the world to blur until you no longer know where you end and they begin. It is to become the endless giver, the quiet absorber, the one who bends and bends until the breaking point. But to endure this is not noble. It is self-abandonment disguised as sacrifice. And every moment you tolerate what you know you should not, you betray the most fundamental truth of your existence, that you are worthy of protection, of respect, of love, not from others, but first and foremost, from yourself. When you set a boundary, you do more than define what is unacceptable. You proclaim to the world and to yourself what you will no longer endure. You say, this is where I stand, this is what I deserve, this is who I am, and in doing so you call forth a strength you may have forgotten you possessed. For boundaries are not easy. They are forged in the fires of self-awareness, tempered by courage, and wielded with clarity. To set them is to risk disapproval, to invite resistance, to challenge the silent compacts of your relationships. But this risk is the price of liberation. And boundaries are not acts of rejection, they are acts of love. Love for yourself, first and foremost, but also love for others. For in setting them, you offer clarity, honesty, and the opportunity for true connection. A relationship without boundaries is not a relationship. It is a slow erosion, a draining of one into the other, until nothing is left. But when boundaries exist, they create the conditions for respect, for mutuality, for the meeting of two whole beings rather than the hollow shadows of compromise. To establish your boundaries is to step into your power. It is to acknowledge your worth, to claim your space, to honor the life that is uniquely yours. It is not the end of compassion, but the beginning of a truer, deeper form of it. For only when you love yourself fiercely can you truly love another. And only when you protect your own freedom can you recognize and respect theirs. Pay attention to body language. Your body speaks louder than words ever could, yet how often do you ignore its subtle cries? When you stand in the presence of another, do you notice the silent tension that creeps into your muscles, the tightening of your chest, the stiffness in your shoulders? These are not merely physical reactions. They are the manifestation of your inner world, the reflection of an unspoken truth about the bond you share. Your body does not lie. It tells the story of your discomfort, your unease, your hesitation. And in that discomfort lies a message you must hear. There is a certain violence in the way your body responds when it feels threatened, when it is trapped within the confines of another's influence. It does not shout, it does not rebel with force, but it resists quietly, persistently. Perhaps you have learned to ignore it, to dismiss it as a passing unease, a natural reaction. But this tension, this subtle recoil, is the warning you have chosen to silence. It is the body's plea for freedom, for space, for authenticity. And if you continue to ignore it, you risk losing touch with the very source of your power. The body is the keeper of truth. It does not disguise its reactions with the fine words of the mind, nor does it shape itself to meet the expectations of others. It responds purely, instinctively. When you feel that tension rise, when the muscles tighten and the heart quickens, it is not merely a physical response, it is a signal, a call to action. It asks you to question what lies behind the interaction, to probe beneath the surface of politeness and charm. What is it about this person, this presence, that causes your body to recoil? What is it that they represent? Perhaps a subtle form of control, a manipulation of your will, or a threat to your autonomy. To listen to your body is to honor your deepest instincts. It is to acknowledge that your freedom, your peace, your very essence matters more than the appearance of harmony. Your body does not lie. It reflects the truth that the mind often refuses to see. And when you begin to trust that truth, you begin to reclaim the power that has always been yours. So pay attention to the language of your body. It is not just a physical response. It is a mirror of your soul, showing you what words cannot. And in that reflection, you will find the clarity to understand your deepest feelings and the courage to act upon them. Returning to your desires before the world of another was woven into your thoughts, before the dreams of someone else had taken root in the corners of your mind, there were your own desires. Pure, untainted by the expectations or needs of another. You knew what you wanted, where you longed to go, who you were destined to become. But with time, like a river swallowed by a greater flood, your desires began to fade into the background, drowned out by the weight of a relationship that demanded your everything, your time, your attention, your very essence. Now ask yourself, do you remember? Do you recall the fire that once burned so brightly within you, the passions that shaped your ambitions? There was a time when the world was yours to conquer, when your dreams were not confined by the walls of another's vision. You were not a reflection of someone else's desires. You were the master of your own fate. But somewhere along the way, you surrendered. Bit by bit, you dissolved into the needs of another, and in doing so, you lost yourself. Yet that self is not gone. It is merely waiting, buried beneath the layers of compromise and sacrifice, waiting for you to remember. Do not deceive yourself into thinking that what was lost is forever gone. The spark still smolders, the yearning still calls. It only takes a moment of silence, a brief reflection, to reconnect with the truth that you are not merely an extension of someone else's life. You are a force in your own right, a being with desires that are as legitimate, as powerful as any other. To return to your desires is not to betray the relationship. It is to reclaim your autonomy, to honor the unique path that was meant for you. It is the act of rediscovering the person you were before you became entangled in the dreams of another. It is the courage to say, I am more than this. I am more than just the sum of our shared moments. When you remember your desires, you reclaim your power. And in doing so, you do not diminish those around you. You elevate yourself and by extension them. For it is only when you are whole, when you are true to your own passions, that you can truly meet others, not as shadows of their expectations, but as partners in a shared journey. So return to what you once wanted, reconnect with the dreams that were once yours alone. And as you do, you will find the strength to walk a path that is truly your own, not one defined by the needs of another. Your desires are the map to your future. Do not let them fade into the background. Debunking the myth of the one and only. How often have you been told in whispered promises or grand declarations that love is a singular force bound to one soul, a rare and unique connection to which you must devote yourself entirely? This myth, this sacred belief in the one and only, is the very cage that keeps you captive in the illusions of eternal fidelity, of irreplaceable love. You have been taught to believe that the love of one person is the pinnacle of human experience, the only love that can offer meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. But what if this belief is not liberation, but shackles? What if love, in its purest form, is not confined to the narrow corridors of a single relationship? To recognize this is to shatter the illusion, to set your heart free from the tyranny of exclusivity. Love, in its most profound essence, is not a possession, not a scarce commodity that belongs only to one person at one time. It is a vast, boundless force, wild, untamable, and ever-changing. To reduce it to a singular experience with a singular being is to deny its true nature, to imprison its power in a box made of expectations, fears, and limitations. The idea that there is only one person in the world capable of inspiring true love is not a truth. It is a myth designed to keep you small, to keep you dependent, to make you believe that your worth is tied to one person's approval, one person's affection. But love is expansive. It is not bound by time, space, or the limitations of a single connection. You are not bound by the idea that you must find one perfect match, for in doing so, you limit the possibilities that life and love have to offer. When you accept that love can come in many forms, from many sources, you open yourself to a more profound truth, that you are not incomplete without someone else. You are whole, and those you encounter, those you love, are not the final pieces of your puzzle, but mirrors reflecting your own potential for connection. Each love, each relationship, is a unique expression of the boundless possibilities within you. To love many is not to cheapen love. It is to expand its meaning, to embrace its fluidity and its depth. For only when you release the false idea of the one and only can you truly experience the vastness of love in all its forms, romantic, platonic, fleeting, enduring. You will see that love is not a finite resource to be hoarded. It is a living force that grows, evolves, and transforms. So release the idea that there is only one person with whom you can share your soul. Love is not a destination. It is a journey without limits, without boundaries. To embrace the multiplicity of love is to reclaim your freedom, to recognize that your heart is not a treasure to be guarded, but a wellspring to be shared. Study the past of your partner. You stand at the crossroads of your present and their past, but how often do you dare to look behind them into the shadows where the roots of their behavior are buried? Every person you meet carries with them the residue of their history, a collection of wounds, patterns, and unspoken narratives that shape how they interact with the world and, more crucially, how they will affect you. To ignore this past is to walk blindly into a storm, trusting the calm of the present without recognizing the winds that may be stirring beneath. The truth is, we are all products of our histories, our experiences, our traumas, and our lessons, or lack thereof. And while love may allow you to see the beauty in someone, it also blinds you to the cracks that may slowly fracture your connection. These cracks are not always obvious, nor are they always intentional. They are the invisible scars left by years of unresolved conflict, unhealed wounds, and behaviors passed down like inheritance. Patterns of manipulation, abandonment, or neglect are not born overnight. They are learned, cultivated over time, and silently passed into the present, like a disease that takes years to manifest. If you dare to look beyond the surface, you may begin to see the telltale signs, the subtle behaviors that echo the unresolved pain of their past. You may notice how they react to stress, how they handle conflict, how they respond to affection or distance. These are the echoes of a history not fully integrated, not fully healed. They are the ghosts of their past that seek to reside in your present, to shape the terms of your connection, whether you are aware of them or not. But this is not an invitation to judge or dismiss. No, this is an invitation to understand, to see the person fully, not just as they are now, but as a complex being shaped by experiences, influences, and wounds that they may not even recognize themselves. This is an opportunity to ask yourself, is this pattern of behavior something I can live with? Can I accept the scars they carry, knowing they may affect how they love, how they give, how they receive? Or will these unexamined patterns, these hidden forces, slowly erode the very foundation of my peace, my autonomy, my self-worth? To study the past of your partner is not to judge them, but to understand the forces that drive them. For only when you see them fully, when you understand the roots of their actions, can you make an informed decision about the future you will share. Love is a force of creation, yes, but it is also an act of awareness. And sometimes the greatest act of love is not to accept another's flaws blindly, but to see them clearly and decide whether you are willing to hold space for them or walk away. So do not shy away from the past, for it is the very key to understanding the present. The past may carry pain, but it also carries wisdom. And in understanding the full scope of your partner's history, you may find the strength to protect your own, or the courage to heal together. The cult of creativity, the escape through creation. In the depths of your inner turmoil, where emotions rage like a storm and the weight of the world presses down upon your soul, there lies a transformative power, a force that can channel this chaos into something sublime. It is creativity, the act of creation itself, that offers the only true escape from the crushing forces of despair and destruction. Yet, how often do you neglect it? How often do you allow your passions, your wild, untamed energy, to dissipate into the void of aimless longing or idle distractions? Creation is not simply an act of making, it is an act of becoming. It is the process by which you transmute your deepest frustrations, your darkest desires, and your most profound longings into something that reflects your very essence. Art, work, or any other form of creation is your weapon against the forces that seek to diminish you. It is the medium through which you assert your will to power, carving your mark upon the world, shaping reality according to your vision. In a world that often demands submission, creation is your rebellion. It is the fire with which you burn away the illusions that bind you, the chains of conformity, the demands of others. You are not meant to be a passive spectator, waiting for life to unfold on its own terms. No, you are the artist of your own existence, the sculptor of your fate. Through creation, you wield the hammer, shaping your path with every stroke, each choice an assertion of your will. When you turn your passion into creation, you are no longer a victim of your circumstances. You are the architect of your experience. The pain you feel, the frustrations that plague you, the emotions that threaten to drown you, these are not burdens to bear passively. They are raw materials, waiting to be sculpted into something powerful, something meaningful. Whether it is through painting, writing, building, or any other act of creation, you have the ability to transform these forces into something that not only reflects your inner world, but reshapes it. This is the true power of creativity. It allows you to transcend the limitations imposed by others and by your own fears. In creation, you find freedom, not the false freedom of fleeting pleasure, but the profound freedom that comes from knowing you can shape your reality, from the deepest of your soul's expression to the material world around you. Creation is your birthright, your escape route from the suffocating embrace of passivity and despair. So, do not let your passions run wild without purpose. Do not allow your creative energy to remain trapped within you, stifled by the demands of everyday life or the expectations of others. Channel it, shape it, create something that is uniquely yours. For in that creation you will find not only relief from your inner struggles, but the discovery of your true self, the self that is not defined by the world's judgment, but by the very power of your will to create. To create is to live fully, to assert your existence in a world that often seeks to suppress it. Through creation, you transcend the ordinary, and in doing so, you reclaim your sovereignty. Do not let your passion be wasted. Direct it into art, into work, into any act of creation that allows you to become the god of your own reality. Engaging with those who inspire. Seek examples of healthy relationships. To see alternatives, to witness a healthy relationship, is to be confronted with the reflection of your own potential, a mirror that reveals what is possible when two souls meet, not in the chaos of need, but in the freedom of mutual respect and growth. Often we are blinded by the patterns we know, the toxicity we've grown accustomed to, and the love that comes with strings, with demands, with silent debts. But what if the relationships you have known are not the only blueprint? What if the very fabric of love, of connection, could be rewoven into something far more profound, far more liberating? There exists a rare breed of human connection, a union of minds and hearts that does not seek to control, to possess, or to dominate. Instead, it elevates, it inspires, it frees. These are not relationships born from dependency, nor are they shaped by the ego's need for validation. They are relationships where both individuals walk together side by side, each flourishing in their own right, each rising to the challenge of becoming more, of transcending what they were before. To witness this is to see a possibility you might have forgotten. To observe such connections is to realize that what you have known is not the sum of what love can be. It is an invitation to escape the tyrannical grip of unhealthy attachments, to step away from the suffocating dynamics you have accepted for too long. For in healthy relationships, there is no need to manipulate, to control, to undermine. There is only space for both individuals to be their truest selves, to love and be loved without diminishing the other. These examples of mutual respect, of growth, of encouragement, are not mere fantasies. They exist. They are not unattainable ideals. They are the fruits of a conscious effort, a deliberate choice to rise above the noise of dependency and attachment. You do not have to remain trapped in relationships that drain you, in connections that stifle your essence. You have the power to seek out the examples that will show you the alternatives. It is not about finding perfection, but about finding the courage to surround yourself with relationships that challenge you to grow, not shrink. Relationships that demand not your submission, but your elevation. When you immerse yourself in the company of those whose interactions are grounded in mutual respect and shared growth, you will begin to see an entirely new paradigm of connection unfold before you. It is a revelation, a door opening to a world where love does not diminish, but amplifies the greatness of those who share it. Seek these examples. Let them inspire and guide you. For it is through these healthy models that you will come to understand the true nature of love, not as a chain, but as a force that sets you free. Find those who uplift, who inspire, who challenge you to be more than you were. And in them, you will find not only a reflection of what is possible, but also the courage to create those same dynamics in your own life. Faith in your own power. Realize that your world will not collapse if you set yourself free. How often have you allowed the weight of the world to convince you that your very existence hinges upon the chains that bind you? How frequently do you tell yourself that if you let go, if you release the ties that have held you captive, everything will unravel, that your world will fall apart? What if I told you that it is precisely these chains, the ones you cling to out of fear, out of the illusion of security, that are the very forces that bind you to a life of smallness, a life of submission? You see, there is a truth that you must confront. Your world, as you know it, is not as permanent as you believe. It is a fragile construct, built upon the foundations of your attachments, your fears, and your need for control. But this world, this reality you hold so tightly, is not truly yours. It is a reflection of the beliefs and limitations you have accepted, beliefs that tell you that without the comfort of familiar bonds, you will crumble, that if you let go of the very things that seem to define you, you will become lost. But what if it is in the letting go that you discover your true strength? What if the very act of freeing yourself, of severing the ties that have held you captive, could be the birth of a life far greater than the one you have known? To release yourself is not to abandon the world, but to transcend it. When you let go of what no longer serves you, when you stop clinging to the crutches of dependency and fear, you make room for something far more potent, your own power. The power that has always been within you, waiting to be unleashed, but which has been drowned out by the noise of others' expectations, by the constant need to please, to appease, to conform. The myth that your world will crumble without these attachments is nothing more than a lie, woven into your mind by the forces that benefit from your obedience, your compliance, your fear. But in truth, your world was never as solid as you believed. The moment you free yourself, you will see that the very act of liberation is what gives birth to a new reality. The moment you stop living in fear of losing what you think you need, you will realize that what you truly require is not the approval of others, not the comfort of dependency, but the strength that lies within you. No, your world will not collapse. It will expand. Your horizons will broaden, and the chains that once bound you will fall away, revealing the vast, uncharted terrain of possibility. You will see that you are not defined by your attachments, but by the raw, unyielding power of your will to create, to shape, to live according to your own truth. Trust in this power. Do not fear the unknown. For in releasing yourself from the false security of what you think you need, you will become the master of your own destiny. You will realize that your true strength is not in holding on, but in letting go. It is in freedom that you will find the fullness of your being, and in that freedom your world will transform. The dance of free will. Build relationships where love is a union of equals, not a struggle for power. In the quietest moments, when the noise of the world fades and you are left alone with your thoughts, you will inevitably ask yourself, what is love? Is it a force that elevates both partners, or is it a battlefield, a constant struggle for dominance, control, and submission? Too often, we are sold the illusion that love is about sacrifice, about one person surrendering to the whims of another, that the true essence of connection lies in subjugation. Yet this is a lie that binds us to relationships where the soul withers, where the fire of passion is extinguished by the cold hands of power. True love, the love that transcends mere romanticism, is not a competition. It is not a battle to see who can bend the other to their will. No, true love is a dance of equals, where each step is an expression of freedom, not control, where each gesture, each word is an offering, not a demand. In such a relationship, there is no need for manipulation, for deceit, for games of power. There is only the pure exchange of energy, the free flow between two souls who are not threatened by each other's independence, but uplifted by it. Imagine then a love that does not seek to control but to empower, a love that does not ask you to sacrifice your essence, but encourages you to become more of yourself. This is the love that transcends the ordinary, the mundane. This is the love that is born of free will, of mutual respect, of a shared understanding that both individuals are whole in their own right, and it is in their union that they become something greater. This love is not built on the foundation of fear or dependency, but on the firm ground of equality. Neither partner is lesser than the other, for they both stand on equal footing, each bringing their own strength, their own passion, their own vision into the relationship. There is no need for a power struggle because each person is empowered in their own right. They do not seek to control or dominate, but to grow alongside each other, to evolve, to push each other toward greatness. They understand that love is not about submission, but about the freedom to fully express who they are, without fear of rejection or loss. Such a relationship is the ultimate expression of free will. It is not the submission of one to the other, but the harmonious collaboration of two beings who choose every day to remain equal, to remain free, to remain true to themselves. It is a relationship where love becomes a force of creation, not destruction. A force that builds, that transforms, that elevates both individuals to heights they could never reach alone. So ask yourself, what kind of love do you seek? A love that demands, that takes, that controls, or a love that liberates, that empowers, that allows both partners to dance freely in the light of their own truth, united in their shared journey of growth and discovery? The choice is yours. But remember, the dance of free will is the only dance where both souls can remain alive, vibrant, and free.